Hi, and welcome to West Peak's How They Lead podcast. I'm Matt Bennett, your host for this episode. And with me today is Eric Laughlin, and we'll introduce you a bit more to Eric in a moment. Before we dive in, our West Peak podcast for How They Lead is all about leadership in different forms. So we've had various people on from different organizations, from different walks of life, and from different roles in leadership, all talking about their background, their experience, and the work that they've done to get them to where they are today. The one thing that they've got all in common is that they are authentic leaders, but all with very different backgrounds and very different experiences. And keen to dive in with Eric today. So Eric is the CEO of Agiloft. Eric, welcome to the pod.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Good to have you here. So tell us a bit more about you and your role, first of all, Eric, and your role at Agiloft.
Sure. I've been the CEO at Agiloft for about 5 years now. I took over for the founder, actually, who wanted to retire back then. So it's been a fantastic ride since then. Agiloft is a contract lifecycle management company. So we work with legal teams, procurement teams, and sales teams to help what some people think of as a necessary evil, right? Contracting into something that is really a critical data asset. So helping them turn contracts into data and helping them iron out processes that help them really achieve what they're trying to do with the contracts. So that's us.
Excellent. And your background before that, so you were in consulting, you were Thomson Reuters for a while before that, weren't you?
Yeah, first decade of professional life, I was in consulting and a dot-com startup and business school and 3M, right? So it's sort of rapid fire, get a couple different experiences. I spent a little over a decade at Thomson Reuters, all focused on in-house counsel, software, services, information, anything for in-house counsel. Yeah, and it was interesting. I feel like I got a real immersion in legal tech. And I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but a real immersion in leadership while I was there. And that led me to Agiloft 5 years ago.
Absolutely. So why necessary evil? Why do you call it that?
Well, I venture that almost everybody listening to this has negotiated a contract, right? And most people don't like that part of the process, right? They think they have a deal with someone or they think they've got a partnership with somebody and now they've got to pay for it, right? So some people just think of it as a necessary evil. And I think it's pretty different than that, right? I think if our businesses didn't have contracts, we wouldn't be businesses. We wouldn't have those instruction kits for how we work with our vendors and our customers and our employees and everything. So, it really is a critical thing. In the past, I've talked about it as a piece of DNA. Really, it's an instruction kit for how you run that relationship. It's not the whole relationship for sure, but it is a critical part.
Yeah. And we're going to talk tech a little later, but essentially it's a no-code platform as well. So for those that aren't too familiar with no-code platforms, tell us a bit about that style of it.
Yeah, I mean, that means it's pretty agile. So, our customers can take what we have out of the box and they can configure it without having to know anything about coding into something that really fits the way their business operates, right? And the Goodwill of Arizona operates pretty different than Shell or Honeywell or something like that. And they all have very different processes. And the way I like to think of it is, it's very important to be agile in lots of parts of life and lots of parts of business. But certainly when you're contracting, if you think about, hey, we want to do something new with pricing or some new compliance orientation we have, you have to be able to get it into your contracting process and quickly in order for you to be an agile business on the whole. Again, contracts are an important part of making a business do what it does every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned there that you took over from the founder.
Yeah.
That's daunting. They're literally handing their baby over to you. How was that as a process in that handover?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because, I think there are lots of founders who are asked to leave by folks. And this is not the case. This was a founder who got some advice that, he could do more with the business that he had. And he found me actually through a partnership that we had together. So we had partnered in working with some of his biggest customers. And so I got to know the business and the product. And it was interesting because at the time, I think no one in legal tech had really heard of Agiloft. It was a little bit of a hidden gem. And so I got to see this, really interesting, product that I thought was capable of better things and some amazing customer relationships and some amazing employees. I got to meet all of them and work with them ahead of making this decision to be the CEO. So it was really great. This is not a podcast about founder transitions. That's a whole different topic we can go into at some point. But, needless to say, I hope that I did him proud and we had a nice event last summer selling the majority of the company to KKR. So he made a lot of good money and he deserved it.
Excellent. Congrats. Excellent. So you said that the decision to be a CEO, was it always in the pipeline for you? Was that kind of senior leadership C-suite role always on the cards for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. I think when I was in third grade, I thought I'm going to be the president of the United States. And so I was thinking big, but I wasn't thinking CEO. I think that went the way of most third grade ideas, not very far. But the reality is I grew up in a family business environment. So my mom and dad ran a business together, small business, never more than like 25 people. But I got to work in the business a lot as a kid and as a teenager. And so I saw what that community felt like. I saw what a family business environment looked like. And I got to see, I think I'm capable of doing this too. Like I can be a CEO. So as soon as I entered my adult professional life, that was the objective. I wanted to be a CEO. I think I certainly got disillusioned a few times over the path, but yeah, I came back and made it happen.
And is it what you thought it would be as that senior CEO within the organization? Is it everything you thought
Yeah,
through? Or...
a lot of it is what I thought it would be, but I think that I referenced getting disillusioned at some point, and I think that was a time in my life when I was looking at large public company CEOs
Yes.
and just seeing how difficult their life was. Professional life is one thing, but having something to just take over your life completely in a way that you have no control over. And I started thinking, I don't know if that's what I want to do with my life. I'd like to have fun along the way. And so, once I sort of reoriented myself to actually, I'm a better fit for a smaller company. And I actually like growth more than I like the stability of the larger company. So once I figured that out and I started realizing what it would be to be a CEO there, then now I started matching what I had in mind for my life as well as my professional ambitions. And that's been true. We've grown. I'd say we're probably 8 times as big as we were 5 years ago when I took over. And we've been able to, so I'd say it's a different company than it was, 5 years ago. And so what being a CEO, has changed during that time. But on the whole, it's matched, everything I wanted for it. And it's been, I'm sure we'll talk more about it, but it's been a lot more, I guess, personal than I thought it would be, as opposed to how sort of like, I don't know, distant and difficult that those public company CEO
Yeah.
jobs looked like to me.
Okay. So tell me a bit more about that. What's that personal style of it, and how did that surface itself for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you inherit a company like I did with 100 people in it, and you have big growth ambitions, I think you really have to put your cultural imprint on the company. And for better or worse, mine was I know what a family business feels like to run, and to me that feels like people that support each other, right? So a supportive group of people who care about each other as people, as professionals, and if you care about each other your customer it'll rub off on how you talk to your customers, how you treat them, how you want to make them successful because you want to support them as people. And so I just sort of entered roughly with that idea. I had a customer once then tell me, oh, you're describing EX equals CX, the employee experience equals the customer experience. I was like, oh, I didn't know that's what I was describing, but great, I'll use that from now on. So so that's sort of how I entered the company and tried to make that come true through the way I showed up.
I know that's something that's really important to you. We've talked about that in some of our calls previously. So what does that mean like from let's talk EX first of all. So what is the employee experience that you're curating as a leader, as the CEO of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, personal, right? The word sort of comes and supportive, and so to begin with, we're a virtual company. And so, you have to be very intentional to make a virtual company into a personal space, it's something that actually works for you. And so, sometimes it's just little things like even though, we're over 400 people now, anybody new that joins the company comes to our first week, our weekly update, which is our all company meeting that I host every time. And they introduce themselves and we chat. Right. So then you get everybody reaching out and saying, oh, you're into this. I am too. Join this ERG. Here's the Slack channel. You should, so just make it personal to begin with. And then just the fact that I am talking about EX equals CX means I'm telling them I'm committed to you. I'm committed to this being a great place so that we can support our customers. And I think there's a very different way of doing, which is saying like, we are customer centric, right? If that's the motive, we are customer centric, then you're telling people what they are instead of saying, no, I'm going to support you as a person. We're going to do good things. It's going to allow you to be creative and innovative, and you're going to serve your customers well as a result. I trust you as a person. And so that's the sort of message I'm trying to tell. I get good feedback on it and on the actions that back it up. So I guess it's working so far.
Love that. And I'm sure
Yeah.
it resonates with a lot of our listeners who are in organizations, regardless of the size, actually, where it still feels that there is that sense of personal touch in there, where
Yeah.
still everybody stands behind the leader. It's that kind of discretionary effort because the work that we put in is then paid forwards in the type of work that we're seeing and feeling with our customers
Yeah.
and clients.
I
And
hope so. I think so. Right. I mean, none of us are here solely for the paycheck, right? We're here so that we can sort of feel good about our contribution to a team and to each other. And I think rewarding that and saying that that is important, I think feels good.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We talk a lot in West Peak about followership. So that discretionary effort that people are putting in order to really achieve their goals, because they know the part that they play as individuals, how that collectively rolls up to the organization's goals, and then how that has an impact
Yeah.
on the wider world, hopefully not just on customers, but on the wider impact as well.
Right. I totally agree with that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So a word you've used a lot there is supported and supportive. What does that look like and mean to you as an organization?
Yeah, I mean, it means that as a human being, right? First of all, I'm going to respect the fact that you live your whole life, right? You live your whole life, and so you have a life outside of work and you have a life inside work, but they merge, right? We're virtual, things are happening every day. So some of it is just as small as like respecting the fact that we are full people and that's who we are. I think the other is. And maybe just to use we were talking musical analogies the other day, to use a sort of musical analogy, this idea that I really believe that to be innovative and creative, you have to be in a trusted environment, and that trust is means that other people trust you and you trust them, right? So it goes both ways. And so how do I sort of show people that I trust them? And one way, and now back to the sort of to start with the music analogy is. We were talking about this idea of timbre, of voice color, right? I'm taking some vocal lessons and I'm learning how to sing better. And it's a thing that I'm doing, and it's a risky creative thing. But as I've been thinking about it and learning about timbre, right, everybody's voice color is a little different. The quality of their voice is a little different. Tom York sings the same note very differently than Johnny Cash would have, right? Just because that's his body is different, and most different, and everything's different about those two people. And so, for when I look at people on the skill sets they bring into our team, whether it's anybody on the team or on my leadership team, I'm saying to myself, like, what's the natural timbre of this person? What is their skill set? Who are they? What is that thing which is natural to them? We can coach a lot, right? All of us leaders think we're good. We try to be good coaches, right? But there's one part of that timbre, of that voice, which is just sort of innate to your body, to who you are and how you're made up. And then there are other parts that you can coach around. But if you start with the idea that I respect that natural timbre, and let's coach on some of the things that you can use to how you can express that, what melody you can sing, right, as a professional, then you start with a place of trust, and then you start to mold. I'm a calm leader. I'm not somebody who gets up on chairs and yells and tries to rally people. And so if somebody tried to change me into that, it wouldn't do well. And I have someone on my team, and some probably a lot of your listeners do, who is like an idea person, thousands of ideas. It's easy to get frustrated by thousands of ideas, but you realize, like, okay, thousands of ideas, that's like actually a huge strength. That's their natural timbre. But now I can help them filter when to turn that off and when to go to action. Like, some part you can still work on that. But again, this all goes back to what we're saying about supportive, which is like support starts with trust. Trust starts with I trust you as a person, and the natural things that make you gifted. We can work on the other thing. We can work on some of the others, but like, let's start with that like foundational trust.
Yeah, love that. So you mentioned calm is part of your timbre. What are the other kind of the core elements of your leadership timbre, the things that make you authentically Eric?
Not liking talking about myself a lot. So I'm being uncomfortable on this podcast. Um, yeah, so calm is certainly one of them. Calm is one of them. I think it has changed over time. I think, as a younger person and as a younger professional, I was much more analytical. And I felt like that my sort of brain power was the thing that was going to do the work for me. And as I transitioned into leadership and had coaches and got really strong feedback, I had to learn again that something something different was required of me. And so, calm but analytical transitioned into like calm but empathetic, right? So it's like that was a transition which took a long time for me to do. didn't actually feel natural to me at first, but which is like fully baked into my psyche now. And I just really think I had a coach when I was probably 35 or 36 that gave me some really good advice about how to do that, and it stuck.
Good. And what are your learned behaviors? What are the things that outside of your natural timbre of the core that makes you who you are? What are some
Yeah.
of the things that you've had to learn and had to pick up in the role of a CEO that maybe weren't the natural ones for you?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the idea of I mentioned getting up on a chair and sort of rallying people. Like, I'm not going to get up on a chair and rally people, but I'm going to stand up in front of my team and we're going to talk and I'm going to try to inspire them in my own way. And so that is something that was a learned behavior for me because it wasn't something that was natural to me. Probably the same is true in just being at a conference and realizing that as I walk around, like I'm the leader of this organization, we're representing ourselves here, and if I see somebody I'm going to go that I need to go talk to, I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to feel, I'm going to use my extrovert self that I'm putting on for myself instead of sort of, shrinking back a little bit. And, I'm social in personal life, but in professional life, being social is a learned behavior for me.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely empathize with that.
Yeah.
We talked about employee experience and the importance of that and building trust and understanding the person and building that sense of community within that. We then talked about the equation of that then equaling the customer experience. So what does that look like in practice externally then, outside for the customer?
Yeah, so it goes hand in hand with this idea that we're no code agile software, which is, our mission is not to make you do the thing that we tell you to do. It's to say we have some best practices. This is the way that the software can work for you, but we're going to respect the way that you want to do things and we're going to help you mold the software to the way that you want to do business. And so right there, that's like a very supportive way to go to work, to talk to a customer. And then our professional services team and our partners, like that's the ethos they have to bring to every engagement. Like, we're here to help you and we're here to make you successful. And I know those are just easy words to say, but when you have a very agile no code platform, you can actually do that in a way that helps mold it around them. So it has to be a little bit about the product, a little bit about the way that you approach things. And then it's just got to be when they are having a hard time, how do we show up? And the only reason I know that we show up in that way, other than like really good CSAT, like customer satisfaction scores, is, we have a customer advisory board that we get together with on a regular basis. And I don't do this every time, but just to say, go around, you've got the CEO, I'm here, like, tell me what you would do different if you were in my seat. And there's lots of good suggestions, but one of them is almost always, don't change your culture. Whatever you do, you're growing fast, don't change your culture. And so like, I'm sitting there saying like, oh, they feel it. They feel our culture, right? So whatever our culture is, they're feeling it, and they're saying, "Don't change it. It's supportive." That's the feedback I'm looking for.
Great, and that's
Yeah,
great to hear.
yeah,
It's also a challenge in itself where they love the culture as it is. You've gone from 100 to 400 people.
yeah,
What are some of the tactics that you could share with some of our other listeners and leaders on how we can keep that culture that people are so precious about in a great way as we
yeah.
start to scale and as we start to expand from 4 to 6, maybe to 800?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think one of the ways is making sure that some of the people that matter to your culture continue to thrive in your organization, right? And so we're all going to bring folks in from the outside for new skill sets that we don't have. Like, that's just a natural part of life, or for people to leave. But making sure that people who exhibit the characteristics you want also succeed professionally is an important thing, right? So there's a woman on my team who, when I came in, she was a salesperson. She was an AE. I wanted to build a customer success organization. She volunteered, and then she wrote all the playbooks for the whole organization. I'm thinking, this is somebody who works like on the business, not just in the business. And I'm like, okay. Next year, I gave her a different job. At some point, she became in charge of IT and a bunch of ops, and now she's in charge of our internal AI initiative. So like, and she is a cultural hero. And she is somebody that everybody knows. Like, the culture is in her, and she embodies that. And so to see somebody like that succeed with those characteristics, I think is a really good way to have the whole company stay on that mode. So that's one piece of advice I've got.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. It's about bringing people in who've got new ideas, but aligned with the culture. So we're still kind of magnifying that culture in a positive way,
Yeah.
seeing
You
new
got to have both.
different ways,
Yeah.
ways of working. Awesome.
That's right. That's right.
So you mentioned there about the customer experience and about the need for kind of agility, and they like that in the platform. Your customer needs are changing as fast as the world of work is changing. Your industry, I'm sure, is going through the typical changes that many people are seeing. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing in your industry now when it comes to leadership or technology or any of those kind of big factors that we're all facing?
Yeah, I mean, probably leadership and technology is one answer for me, and it should be everyone's answer, which is that the world is changing due to AI. So what? So what are we going to do? And the way that I think of this is that we're in the middle of a transition. There is a future; it is coming. We don't know exactly what it looks like, but we know it's coming, and there's a lot more AI in it. And so and as a CEO, especially CEO of a software company, I'm part of accelerating that, right? And I have to do that I have to do that in a way that I'm comfortable with, and I think in a way that is responsible. And so, like, what is my responsibility as a CEO? I think that's the biggest challenge for all of us, but especially as a technology or software company CEO. And so, the way that I like to think of it is like we are in the middle of a transformation, our whole society, and it's absolutely a technology transformation, but it is equal parts. It is a human transformation. Like we have to learn how to work alongside and with this new technology, just like every other generation has with their tech. But this feels different. And so my responsibility to my employees and to my customers is helping them succeed in this new world. And so if it's very tempting as a CEO to say like, just use this new technology, please, right? Or I am going to sell this cool new technology, please buy it. But if you approach it, which I think we're trying to approach it from the idea of, I would like to make you as successful as possible in this new world. Let me get you comfortable and using it as fast as possible so that we will succeed, so that your company will succeed, so that you as a professional will succeed. And so that's at least the backdrop the core challenge for me is, hey, we're going to be able to figure out how to build the tech. It's how do we build the people up around it? And there are in our customers and in my company, every employee needs to learn how to be a manager faster, right? You need to manage the work that you're doing and the work that some agent is doing, and that's maybe a new skill set for you. Something that I was forced to learn when I had a team, but everybody's going to be forced to learn now in a different way. People might think I have a job, I do a thing, I have a goal, but they need to start thinking in terms of process and sort of task flows and which things are more efficient for me to do versus an agent to do. And again, that's sort of a manager skill set, that delegation, and teaming, and how do I make that agent better every 6 months through a review process and reprogram. That's all. Internally we have, I just mentioned earlier that we have an internal team now that their job is AI transformation internally. And so that's not just building the agents and sort of scaling the tech, but there are people ops people on that team, right? And that team needs to, and I put somebody who's a high culture, aware person in charge so that we can sort of, help people along the way and help upskill them. And as we go into the sort of customer realm, we need to do the same thing. So our products can't just be AI and you don't get to intervene. Like you have to have this real marriage of the power of AI, but with the control that you're used to, and how do you sort of over time manage that process. And so I think that's what I think of. That's the biggest challenge, and that's sort of my framework for working through it.
It's so interesting. We work with leaders ourselves every day of the week, and we're now training leaders not just to lead people, but how to lead agents as well. So really kind of that future tech of, we're not just managing people, but it's people-centric AI leadership.
Right. Leaders need to lead people in tech, and leaders need to lead people who also are leading leaders in tech, even though they're individual contributors.
Yeah, exactly that.
So it's a wild new world,
but
exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, I think so. And if we can harness that excitement and the power of AI at the same time, I think it's going to be the interesting key to it. There's obviously, though, a lot of people who are nervous more about some of the negatives of AI that we see and we hear a lot around us. And we're recording towards the mid to end of October. There's been a lot in the news over the last couple of days from Amazon and how they're investing in AI rather than in some of the actual roles that people have got within the organization.
Yeah.
Managing that kind of balancing act internally, where you've got your AI, your team there, who are really kind of pushing that forwards, whilst also seeing that there is always that necessary human-centric AI leadership that is required.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, are you one way to think about that question is how am I managing sort of the fear
Mm,
of the organization around that change? And I think the only way to get that is to really change that is to think about how you sort of change that fear into curiosity, right? So if you can get to curiosity, you can get a lot of places. Um, I think for folks who have fear around it, I think some of it is sort of at a societal level is right on. Like I have to respect that there's some fear there, but for their own personal development and working in this new world, like we need to get them to a place of curiosity. And that curiosity is, what can I do? What should I be doing? Is my job going to be more fun? Is my job going to be more creative? Am I going to be able to innovate more if I have these tools available to me? But until you get to curious, you can't even get there. And I think from a organizational standpoint, there's all these stats about how AI fails 95% of the time, right? You've seen that article, I have too. Um, the sort of smartest quote I read about that, which I really believe is just the when you implement a bunch of AI tools into our organization, it just like it holds a mirror up to the organization and says like, are you ready?
yeah.
Right? Are you ready? Do you have the data? Do you understand your workflows? Like, are your people curious? Do you have clarity of task and clarity of goal? And so, when I think about getting people from like fear to curiosity, some of it is like, okay, let's get the data ready and let's understand it now. Oh, now you can harness that data. That's actually what you've always wanted is you
Yeah.
wanted more clarity on this. And so like, what are the wins along the way that can help us bridge that gap from fear to curiosity?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we were talking about when we were catching up beforehand was around curiosity, and it was about leadership and that kind of future need of leaders to always be curious leaders,
Yeah.
always to be continuously learning. You also
Yeah.
mentioned there around creativity. So let's throw a curveball in and talk about you being a music guy, because outside of leadership, I've been talking about some of the things that you're doing around curiosity and continuous learning and creativity. So tell us
Yeah.
what's going on outside of work from your.
Yeah. So, I mean, I never thought of myself as a creative person until I was in my 40s, and picked up a guitar at the encouragement of one of my brothers, and started with the goal of singing around campfires during COVID. Because weren't we all going to be hanging out at campfires for years? We did actually here in the Pacific Northwest. So learned how to play guitar, learned that I actually like singing as much as I like guitar, and have just realized that I've got this group of people who I'm learning with, and we're learning and we're playing together and we're writing songs and we're performing, for each other. Our spouses like to call it like recital night, where we're like working on all the stuff that we like. It's a lot of fun, and I was sort of mentioning earlier that it just what I've realized is that once you start being creative, this is probably an insight everybody who's creative already knows. Once you start being creative, it's kind of hard to stop. Like you want to do the next thing. You want to learn how to write poetry, right? You want to like I like electronic music. I like dancing. I want to create some on my own. I met someone at a work conference. She was an amazing singer. Sent me one of her tracks. We're working together on making a club remix for that, right? And to sort of tie it back to our last conversation, I created a custom GPT in order to tutor me on how to become like an electronic music producer and how to master tracks and how to do all the mixing, because I just don't know enough and I didn't want to take a class. So I just spend my evenings like chatting with OpenAI about like, I don't know how to do this part. What would you suggest? Oh, try this and that. So I've managed to, I think, keep the creative parts to myself, but take the learning and sort of outsource some of that learning so I can do it much more quickly. I encourage leaders everywhere to get their hands on AI in a way that makes them more creative, because the light bulb will turn on and they will be able to more credibly say to their teams, okay, I'm doing this. I know you have a way of doing this in your personal life. And if we all have a way of doing it in our personal lives, let's get curious about how we can do it in our professional lives. And I think that to me, that's how it all sort of ties together.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
My stance on AI is that it's important that we think with AI, not just use it from the get go. So we've got
Yeah.
all this wonderful level of human creativity and human ingenuity. That's
Yeah.
going to take us to our level of thinking. AI
Yeah.
can take us beyond that. So when we
Yeah.
think that we've got that self-limiting belief of not being creative, Actually, AI then takes that away from it. It
Right.
produces that self-limiting belief of many things.
Yeah.
I went
I
to a
like that.
conference.
And I think that's an ageless thing, it's
Yes.
like that's at any age, at any time, and really in any setting. And actually, my mother-in-law's birthday is right now, and we had dinner with her last night, and my gift to her was a bunch of lessons on how to use AI. That's, she's curious, but she doesn't know how to start. And I'm like, well, once you get started, you'll just be able to use it. So it doesn't matter how old you are. Let's go for it.
So how are you translating that then into your leadership culture? You're clearly
Yeah.
very curious about things. You're
Yeah.
clearly up for trying new things in new AI. How is that now
Yeah.
having an impact and rippling down through the
Yeah.
organization?
Well, I think on the experimentation side, I think of as sort of the internal transformation around AI as starting with experimentation, right? Just like I did. So I personal experimentation or work experimentation. So we, sort of phase for one for us was let's arm our teams with enough tooling that they can experiment, right? So if it's something that bolts onto an existing solution they have, or just enterprise ChatGPT, you can make your own custom GPTs, and you sort of see who the experimenters are. They just come out of the woodwork, right? And so we turned that into our AI council, right? So we've got people from all across the organization who are experimenting. And then phase two is, because I said you've got to be agile, like that's only going to work for so long. Okay, phase two is now we've got a specific group of people who we put a leader in charge of, and are staffing so that they can scale those ideas and make them into things that impact everybody. So to me, it's really experimentation, scale, and then move on and do it again.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the times when it maybe didn't go according to plan. That messy
Yeah.
middle that many of us have been through. You said earlier about kind of moments where you were disillusioned, a little bit about leadership as well. So what about some of the times where maybe things didn't go quite according to plan? How did you learn from those and how did it shape you?
Yeah. I think the thing that always comes to mind when people ask questions similar to this is an experience I had where I was passed over for an opportunity.
Okay. Mhm.
There was a reorganization. There was some new leadership roles that were going to merge out of that, and I was like, I think that's the one I want, and I sort of lobbied for it hard. Didn't get it, and I reacted really poorly to it. In hindsight, I made too big a deal of it. I expressed my I expressed some disappointment, but not in the way I should have with my boss. Little did I know, he was like, "Hey, kind of be quiet because there's another opportunity coming in 2 months, and that's what you're gonna do, and it's
Okay.
better." So I was like, he's like, "And I'm still gonna give it to you, despite how you just reacted today, but I probably shouldn't." And so I was like, oh, I really messed that up. Like I was too ambitious and I got too wrapped up in a thing instead of the idea of like, hey, there's a lot of stuff that could help this team, and my stuff will shine through, and I'll shine through, and something good will emerge. Um, and I really, so for me, I had to sort of think of it as like a little bit of like graciousness when you lose, right? I was very competitive,
Hmm.
still am underneath, but like, it was very competitive. And how do you react when you lose? And the other thing is, you lose in different ways every day, right? That's a kind of like a big example that could have torpedoed my career trajectory a little bit. Luckily, it didn't. But you lose in lots of little ways every day. You say something wrong, or you do something stupid, or you lose a customer. So how are you gonna like react to that, and how are you gonna take a learning mindset instead of I'll just give myself a hard time, call it crybaby mindset. So so that's definitely has impacted how I think about just sort of the ups and downs of the day to day that we all go through, because every single person here is winning and losing every day. Nobody has the perfect day.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely. And how
yeah,
do you instill that then in your immediate direct reports when you're maybe seeing some of those similar things from your experience?
yeah.
How do
I
you
mean,
go some
I
of
don't see a lot of people acting the way I did, but yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think we have a culture that's pretty supportive, right? So if people are something bad is happening, is usually the person who is suffering that loss who is like apologizing, or is taking it on the most themselves. And so I think for me, it's a little bit of acknowledge, yes, that was not the result we were looking for. I still believe in you. Like, let's go get it. So it's not hard, I think, if you have the right culture, to have those two things kind of go hand in hand. So I don't think we suffer too badly from that on a day to day basis.
No. Okay, good. And we talked earlier on about kind of the future of leadership and the future of AI. What are some of the other skills that are not necessarily kind of tech focused that you think are the essential
Yeah,
ones for future and tomorrow's world of leader versus the skills that got us to where we are today?
sure. I mean, maybe it's unfair to say that these aren't the skills that got us here, but certainly flexibility
Mhm.
and agility to me are the baseline, right? I think we all just know that things are going to change. We just don't know how fast they're going to change, but we do know that our organizations need to be ready to change really rapidly. And so I think of whether it's like implementing tech or a new team or a new process or whatever it is that we're doing as leaders. Um, we have to make sure that we're setting it up so it can be agile instead of just thinking about how I might change it later. And so I think that's certainly the ethos of our company when we work with customers, like set it up in a way that can change, right? And use software that can change. But I think the same is true for anything we're working on, whether it's just a new process. Make sure that we don't know everything about how this product is going to launch. So this process we're using to support our customers better be ready to change. And that's got to be true for your CFO, who has to be ready to change the budget, right? That's got to be true for your team that's tracking KPIs. If like all you're doing is tracking a KPI that doesn't make sense anymore, I'm not sure why you're doing that. So every little part of the perform, measure, track sort of system sort of has to be flexible in a way that respects how fast things can move. And I think that's certainly something that's always been true, but I think it just gets more and more true as we change more and more rapidly today.
Absolutely. I call it growing in the grey, knowing that there are no definites. The black and white is now gone. We are operating with more data, but less facts than we've ever had before. So we
Yeah,
have to operate in that grey. We have to be able to move forwards without knowing the full answer and just taking some risks, taking our best guess, and still
yeah.
being able to move forwards.
I think one of the hardest things for us to change is going to be, and just this agility mindset is going to be um, the agility of thinking differently about our org charts.
Hmm.
Like we're all so used to growing an organization and painting an org chart and saying, this is what my org chart looks like. And then, it doesn't have to be like a kingdom building or anything. It's just like, these are the people that are on my team. And this is what they do. And then here's the cross-functional team they interface with. Great. But again, back to AI, but the impact on the organization is like AI doesn't have an org chart. Like you can put it on the org chart. You can
Yeah.
say it does this task, but then you can call that agent, even you can give it a name. But that agent or that thing is extremely good at working across boundaries because it doesn't understand org charts. Why should it? You would never train it on the org chart because you would just be like putting in stickiness that it doesn't need. And so if the agents are starting to work better across org charts, that means that you're going to have people that need to work better across org charts because they're going to need to direct traffic through that. And so like the idea that the AI might blow up our org chart, not just be on it, but eventually blow it up. And now what are we going to do? And how are we going to, think about the administrative stuff that comes with leadership, as well as the coaching stuff that comes with leadership, but also think about our org charts differently. And I don't know what the answer is. It's a problem I think we are going to have to face coming up pretty shortly.
Absolutely. And if you think how that would have an impact on an organization of 400, imagine
Right.
an organization of 4,000.
Yeah. How is Amazon going to work on that problem? Yeah.
Because it is
Yeah.
gonna have a huge impact, and I completely agree. It is going to be
100%.
how organizations are structured in the future.
Yeah. That's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. So what does the future look like then for Agiloft? What are some of the next steps, the next projects, things that you're working on at CEO level?
Yeah. Good question. Again, I hate to say this like the 15th time in the last 45 minutes, but like AI is our biggest investment, and making sure that internal and external, that's the most important thing that we're doing is the tech and the people transformation that goes along with it. That's core to our mission, because we need to make sure that our customers are as successful as they possibly can be, and so fast sort of dynamic market. So we have to be there with them every step of the way.
Absolutely.
I think the thing that we say, is what's next for us is sort of, how do you think about what you're looking for in a few years? And the thing that the framework I like to use is we want to be the most valuable CLM, the most valuable contract lifecycle management software. And what that means is we need to be the most valuable for our customers, for our employees, for our partners, and for our investors. It doesn't mean we need to be the largest single company in the world. We need to be the most valuable CLM for those parties. Because if we do all that right, it's going to work for every one of them. Like you can't do if I wouldn't build a business in a way that made an investor happy, but no one else like that. And I can't even imagine what that would be. But if I build a business and make my employees and my partners and my customers happy, like our investors will be happy. And so I just think that those are sort of my audiences when I say, I want to make this thing as valuable as I possibly can, the most valuable CLM for each of you.
Absolutely. I think if you built a business where only the investors would be happy, it's not a business that would last very long.
It is not. It is an unhappy business.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So, final question, and this is a question that we ask every guest. West Peak is named after the fact that there's an East Peak and a West Peak often when you are hiking or climbing.
Yeah.
Anyone's been hiking before, you think you've reached the peak, and then you get to the top, you're like, no, this is the East Peak. We've still got to go a bit further to get to the West Peak.
Yeah.
Are there moments in your career where you thought you were there, you thought you were summiting it to the way that you expected to, and then actually looked over the horizon and there it was, the actual task, the actual West Peak?
I do love when you're hiking how many places have something that's called like false summit or something like that. So that rings. That sounds true. Yeah, I mean, what it makes me think of is not specific times in my business, but when I think about all the successes that I've had, most of them you would probably consider to be like East Peaks, right? Not the West Peak. Like most of them are whether it's a company milestone or it's a promotion or something like that, or just something amazing that a customer did with our product. Like those are all East Peaks. So I don't know if I'm going to get the metaphor right or butcher it for you, but I guess I think more of East Peaks as like milestones and West Peaks as like the mission, right? Like it's always going to be there. Like West Peak's always going to be in the distance. You're never going to really get there because it's the mission, which is never complete. But you better make sure that you celebrate the East Peaks. I mean, so life is if you go too long, without celebrating those East Peaks, despite the fact that West Peak is over there, you're doing something wrong, right? You're not enjoying it, and neither is anybody else around you. And so what I'm just trying to do as a leader is like really internalize myself, like it's okay to celebrate the East Peaks, right? In fact, you should celebrate them. So if you hit something, celebrate it, and then look ahead to the other one, but like celebrate it. I mean, can you see them? Oh yeah. So I have these like Daruma dolls up here, which I'm sure lots of people use, right? It's like, well, that was one, but as soon as I filled in the other eye, put the bigger one up there. So, ready to sort of look at the next one and go, but celebrate it, like do something about it. And I'm not sure that I have been the best at that as a leader along the way, because as a leader, it's always your job to look at the next one. And sometimes you've already moved on by the time you pass the East Peak. And so I'm trying harder to solve.
Excellent. A great analogy and great self-reflection, I think, sums you up perfectly as a leader. So thank you very much for taking the time. Where can we find out a bit more about Agiloft and a bit more about you if people wanted to connect?
Great. I mean, agiloft.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course. I do my best to answer those mails. So hit me up there.
Thank you very much. And we'll link all of this with the socials when we launch the podcast. So Eric, all that's left is thank you very much for joining us on the How to Lead podcast today.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye now.
There we go.
All right.
How did you find that?